Hello there and welcome to joining us on the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on For You Television. Our big stories of tonight. Ivorian officials have demanded their Malian counterparts to release their 49 soldiers arrested Sunday, July 10 and accused of being mercenaries to Mali, the twist of events which many fear could raise diplomatic tension between Ivory Coast and Bamako. Plus, former Rwandan state official Laurent Basiborota has been slammed 20 years jail term for complicity in the African nation's unforgettable genocide 28 years after. And of course, in Cameroon, fuel scarcity has been reported in the towns of Betua, Yaoundé, and some part of Douala in the past 48 hours. And the government of Cameroon has reassures her population of putting the situation under control. Those are my big stories, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. I am Tekewana at the anchor. We begin this day from Mali, where officials in Ivory Coast have urged Malian authorities to release with immediate effect their soldiers arrested on Sunday, July 10, 2022 and charged of mercenary. What do analysts think will be the recent twist of events between Bamako and Abidjan? The details in this report.
Analysts are now weighing in on the diplomatic row in West Africa following the arrest of Ivorian soldiers at Mali's Bamako airport accused of being mercenaries by the Malian authorities. Dr. Ali Tonkora is executive director of the Center for Security and Strategic Studies in the Sahel and political analyst who now reflect on the situation.
According to the first factual elements given by the state of Mali, the idea of mercenarism is tenable. But at the same time, when one also considers societal aspects, the idea of all habits remains tenable as hypothesis that these are people who have always been deployed without the state of Mali being informed. The second hypothesis, which is also to be taken into account at this stage, is that the military elite in power will seek not only to have effective control over all the security elements operating on Malian territory, but it's also a way for the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the political military elite in power to establish their legitimacy in the eyes of the public in terms of the ability to control the threats, whatever their nature.
In the meantime, Ivory Coast officials on Tuesday, July 12, urged Malian officials to release its 49 soldiers detained unjustly at the Bamako airport and accused of being mercenaries, whereas they are not. Mali in the past months and years have been battling with security threats from the jihadist movement in the Sahel region. Dr. Ali Tonkora once more.
It is a bit early to claim victory in terms of effective control over the entire territory when we know that everything that is still underway, so prudence must be the order of the day. As for optimism, it is must certainly be prudent.
The Ivorian authorities have insisted the soldiers had arrived Mali to join MINUSMA, the UN peacekeeping force. It is hoped the current tension between both nations ends well and not to aggravate the already existing tension in the west of Africa.
Let's continue talking about insecurity in the west of Africa. In recent times, where of course we have countries like Togo, Burkina Faso and Mali, which of course have been to the spotlight of insecurity. We caught up with a human rights activist in Cameroon to get to understand just what he thinks about the ongoing insecurity in the west of Africa. And according to him, the bedrock of the problem in the west of Africa lies in history. Take a listen to him.
The insecurity in Africa, especially in West Africa, is greatly being caused by the jihadists. And in this case, they are groups. You have two categories of groups. One of these groups is to ensure that the Western world doesn't have an effect on the African population. And the other is persons who are militias of the same Western world. Because most of these companies which are mining within this particular area, they are the major reason why most African countries are always going into conflict. Let us take the case of DRC Congo. Let us take the case of Glencore in Cameroon, which talks about pleading guilty for corruption charges in the US and in Britain. But what is happening, if you go to most of these countries, except for Cameroon, which understands how to manage things like this, but if you go to other African countries like Mali, like Burkina Faso, like Sudan, like Chad, where most of these things are happening, it is very difficult to manage them. But when you look at the entire situation, you understand that African leaders are greatly contributing to this, because most of the African leaders are acting as proxies to the West. They are there as persons who have decided to protect the interest of the West at the detriment of their people. So while Africans are dying, most of these leaders do not find them as anything very important to them. And what is happening? When the Europeans came to Africa, what did they do at the end of the day? They created institutions that were there to serve their interest. The constitution in Africa, which most African countries are using, are not the constitutions which Africans ought to have had. Secondly, what did they do? The educational system they did live in Africa. When they came to Africa, they instituted educational system which they are always there to serve the interests of the master. That is why when Africans will study, they will go back to Europe to see how they can pick up their lives. Now, who is supposed to be blamed for this? We have to go back to look at the leadership. And this has come to cause a lot of war within the regions, because if these guys had refused this from the beginning, then we ought not to have been where we are today. And also, we have most Africans who decided at a particular point in time to accept the constitution that was given to them because it did serve their interest. If we should go back to the days of the British, where they had this issue of warrant chiefs, and most of these warrant chiefs also, they helped a lot in causing problems. And another factor which is causing conflict in Africa is the issue of land.
G. Lucas talking there of a human rights activist talking about the state of insecurity animating the west of Africa. Now, in one of our list story, we told you that the former Rwandan state official Laurent Baruta has been slammed 20 years in prison because of complicity in the genocide in his country after 28 years of the incidents. As Jix Nabise reports that justice could only be delayed but never denied. Her report.
A French court on Tuesday, July 12, convicted a former senior Rwandan official to 12 years jail term after finding him guilty of complicity in the East African nation's genocide of 1994. Laurent Baruta is the highest-ranking Rwandan to have faced trial in France over the massacre, in which an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and Hutus died in 100 days of mass extinction.
The most important thing in reality is that the trial took place, that this man who embodied the power in his prefecture was obliged, even if it took 28 years, to come and answer questions, to explain himself in front of the victims, in the presence of the survivors, and to listen to the survivors' accounts.
The United Nations had set up the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda in 1994 in Arusha, Tanzania, a few months after the genocide that killed mostly the ethnic Tutsis. 4 years after September 1998, the court became the first international tribunal to hand down a conviction for genocide. The court issued dozens of rulings from life sentences to acquittals before closing in late 2015. Shortly after that, its works were taken over by the Mechanism for International Criminal Tribunals Office in Arusha, where the overall court's chief prosecutor, Serge Bames, is based. We recall that Rwanda started trying genocide suspects in 1996, and on a single day in April 1998, 22 convicts were executed by firing squad. The impact of the Tutsi massacre is still fresh in the memories of the affected, and just a few survivors have been able to reconnect with their families. Félicien Kabuga, an alleged financier of the genocide, is due to be tried in no distant time at The Hague after the United Nations court ruled in June that he was fit to stand. Kabuga, arrested near Paris in 2020 after 25 years on the run according to the United Nations, is accused to have helped created the Inter-Armenian Hutu militia, the main armed group involved in the massacre.
Let's leave Rwanda and make a stop over to Togo, where newly elected ECOWAS President Umaru Sissoco is on a working visit in Togo to discuss the future of the country, which of course in recent months is been plagued with insecurity. As you tell us, Photo.
For his first visit abroad after his election as head of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Bissau Guinean President Umaro Sissoco Embalo went to Togo. Officially, the strengthening of bilateral cooperation was the main purpose of this working visit to Togolese soil on Tuesday, July 12. The president of Guinea-Bissau, Umaro Sissoco, also current president of ECOWAS, was welcomed at Nyantugu International Airport by the head of state for Esozima Nyasimbe, according to a press release from the Togolese authorities. This official trip, a face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in Pia, during which diplomatic relations and cooperation between the two countries were discussed. Exchange also took place on the situation in the sub-region and the strengthening of integration within the space. Well-informed sources consulted informed that beyond bilateral issues, the meeting between the two heads of state focused on the actions to be taken in order to lead the elections and the re-establishment of a civilian government in Mali, Burkina, and Guinea. This is Umaro Sissoco Embalo's second visit to the Togo, after that of just over 2 years ago. Togo and Guinea-Bissau maintained excellent relations during the socio-political crisis that shook the Portuguese-speaking country. Togo deployed police and gendarmes as part of regional security and peacekeeping missions, ECOMIN 140 in total. These personnel were responsible for ensuring the security of the presidential election in this country, agitated by the repeated political crisis. The election of Umaro Sissoco Embalo at the head of the Guinea-Bissau had created favorable conditions for a return to the stability. Several countries participated in this security mission, including Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and Senegal, to all look for a common way out from the string of insecurity animating the west of Africa.
And permit me remind you all that Togo is still under a state of emergency following litany of insecurity reports recorded in that part of the African continent. And now from one visit to another, from Togo we go over to Chad, where His Excellency Mohamed Bazoum of Niger is on a working visit to Chad to strengthen her bilateral relationship and discuss new avenues that need to be exploited with Chad. As you tell us more once more, photo.
Niger President Mohamed Bazoum began a Tuesday, July 12, a 48-hour official visit to the country of Toumai. The day of July 13 was punctuated by a private meeting between the two statesmen and a bilateral meeting extended to the two delegations, followed by a joint press conference. This trip by Mohamed Bazoum to Chad is multifaceted, even if visually the purpose of this visit is part of the periodic contact between the two leaders and the strengthening of bilateral cooperation because of the unbreakable ties, geographical, cultural, economic, and social proximity between Niger and Chad, as explained by the Niger presidency. Subjects of common interest such as the security insurgency in the Sahel between Chad commitment in the central zone and in the fight against Boko Haram, economic issues of the two oil-producing countries as well as the prospect of Lake Chad treatment were on the menu of discussion between the President Mohamed Bazoum and that of the Transitional Military Council, Mahamat Idris Deby. Another subject were the issues of Lake Chad with the strengthening of resilience and the strategy for revitalizing the living environment of nearly 50 million of the 4 member countries of Lake Chad Basin, commissioner especially at this challenging time the globe is into.
Let's now talk something which, of course, is of pertinent to every African and the world at large. That is, of course, the rise of prices in basic commodities and fuel. Our reporter, Jix Nabise, took interest onto this sad reality. And here comes her report.
Like most countries abroad, African countries are facing a rapid rise in prices of consumer goods and fuel in the war in Ukraine that has endangered wheat and corn supplies. These crises, coupled with climate change, has pushed about a quarter of Africans towards hunger, according to reports. Some time ago, the international community of the Red Cross warned that an estimated 346 million people in Africa, which is 1/4 of the population, was facing a food security crisis, from the price hikes plaguing the continent. The cause is, according to Dominic Stillhart, head of global operations, a conflict, drought and increases in the cost of fuel. The acute price hikes in basic goods and commodities in most African countries has before now been affected by ongoing armed conflicts. With Russia and Ukraine being global exporters of wheat, developing countries like Egypt, Nigeria, Sudan, Libya and a host of others have deeply been affected with the increase in prices of bread, fast food, and when there is a supply gap, most African countries turn to feudal impact. Nigeria, for instance, whose economy solely depends on fuel export from Ukraine to satisfy local demand, has been on hit as Nigerians protested in the West African nation. In a bid to address this global shortage and save the continent, Dr. Akinwumi, the senior president of the African Development Bank, said the bank is aiming to raise $1 billion to stay off the potential food crisis on the continent. Meanwhile, Dr. Adesin has foreseen the challenges in Europe as a possible opportunity for the African continent. It positions itself as a natural gas supplier to Europe, a boast of Nigeria is talking about. Amidst all these, the Ubuntu mindset definitely could be a way out, and we could see African leaders heeding Dr. Adesin's call.
And as a follow-up to that story, we come down to Cameroon, where fuel shortage has been reported in the towns of Betua, Yaoundé and Douala in the last 48 hours. The government of Cameroon, in response, have reassured its population for calm. Thus, the situation is under control. Foto has the rest of that story.
According to the Minister of Water and Energy, Gaston Elundu Esomba, the government has already taken measures to remedy the fuel shortage observed in some cities of the country for a few days. And so, on high instruction from the President of the Republic, significant financial resources have been mobilized to ensure the continuous payment of the price subsidies at the pump. This has made it possible to trigger since July 11, 2022, the unloading of 28,000 meter cubes of super, 22,000 meter cubes of diesel, and 12,500 meter cubes of Jet A1, which are currently being and gradually released for consumption. In addition, additional volumes of 88,000 meter cubes of diesel and 35,000 meter cubes of super are available in the waters and will be unloaded in the coming days. Note that the Minister of Water and Energy reassured people that despite the international situation characterized by the exponential rise in the price of petroleum products, the public authorities continue to take all necessary steps to ensure the continuous supply of gas in the national market to prevent more economic tension already witnessed in the country. It is hoped this effort by the government will help Cameroonians continue their daily activities despite the current challenges the nation is facing at the moment.
And let's talk local development at this point in time, where the Douala 4 Council will, in the months ahead, begin benefiting from a project piloted by the World Health Organization under the Urban Governance for Health and Well-being scheme. Actors involved in the execution of this project met recently in Douala to discuss and identify some of those key projects that need urgent attention. Details in this report.
Cameroon's humanitarian crisis has witnessed an increase in the past 5 years, and because alone, the government can't survive the different bullet shot with an open arm, they had to welcome the World Health Organization to help extend a hand of solidarity to the needy. It is against this backdrop, the Urban Governance for Health and Well-being program, piloted by the World Health Organization in collaboration with local councils, especially that of Douala 3, which of course can testify that her population of Brazzaville neighborhood today enjoy potable drinking water thanks to this project.
Meeting, we are coming here to review and finalize the city action plan. The city action plan of the Douala city is one of the deliverables of this project, which support the different entities involved and the stakeholders in elaborating through a consensual and participatory project of this action plan.
Nonetheless, the Douala validation plan, we are told by the officials involved in the identification process of projects, seeks to assist particularly internally displaced individuals residing in the Douala 4 subdivision, especially at this challenging time when the society is faced with the cholera outbreak and COVID-19 pandemic still roving. Aside health, the project also seeks to beef up the capacity of town planning officials of the council area to better handle demography issues, which has for over the years been a thorn on the flesh of the council officials.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's the package we could gather for you this day. God willing, we shall be back here same time tomorrow for what must have made us in Cameroon, Africa, and the world. Until then, from Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, down to Jamena, Chad, passing through Libreville, Gabon, and landing in Bata, Equatorial Guinea. God bless Motherland Africa. Bye-bye.